How's it going, y'all? So today I want to go through and discuss a period of history talking about the transitional periods from the Renaissance to the Enlightenment. So first and foremost, let's explain that the Renaissance, which basically means rebirth, was a period of great cultural, artistic, and intellectual growth in Europe. The Renaissance began in Italy in the 14th century and spread across Europe. This lasted right until the 17th century. This era marked the transition from the Middle Ages, especially in Europe, to the modern world. As people became more interested in science, art, and the ideas of ancient civilizations like Greece and Rome, basically what they wanted to do is they wanted to go through and idolize and put the way people thought, acted, and lived their lives back in ancient Rome into Europe, into their lives. And they went through and tried to dress like them, act like them, and just take thinking and free speech and like you can live your life the Roman way, put that into their life. Then they gave them like something to look forward to, something to kind of escape reality in a way, right? The Renaissance was a time of discovery, and a lot of times it was a big time of innovation. People went through and created things, innovated, changed of how things worked. This all changed how people thought about themselves as well as the world. One of the most important aspects of the Renaissance was its focus on humanism, basically a focus on humans and how we interact and how we are as people, right? An intellectual movement that emphasized the potential of individuals and the study of classical texts was developed in this time period. Scholars like, I can't pronounce his name, Petrarch, is that how you spell it, is Petrarch, and Erasmus, spell it is Erasmus. Those people encouraged other individuals to explore philosophy, literature, and history, and better understand human nature, right? This new way of thinking inspired many to question old traditions and seek knowledge through observation and reason, laying the foundation for modern science and education, right? Furthermore, it's also important to say that the Renaissance had a lot of art and architecture being created during this time. It flourished with artists like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael, creating masterpieces that are still celebrated today. Talk about Leonardo da Vinci. He went through and made like the first tank, right? The first tank. Like typically the things rolling around tracks, right? They keep soldiers safe, right? Tank. But he came up with a different kind of idea. It was like a big, like circular thing that moved around, and it spun with cannons inside of it that they were able to aim by spinning it. You can instead of aiming here, you move it back and forth. Like guns raise on their own. It's a cool concept that he came up with. He also invented a parachute. The parachute's different from what you see in modern day. In modern day, you see the parachute like round, right, with somebody below, holding it up to it and floats down. He had idea. It was like a triangle, like a pyramid kind of thing. It was a cool concept, and it was great, and it helped lead to the innovation of these kind of activities. So it's not just art, but it's just invention as well, right? Some of these artists, they made new techniques such as perspective, which made their paintings and sculptures more realistic. Architecture also saw innovation with buildings like the Florence Cathedral and St. Peter's Basilica. Those showcase the beauty and balance during the classical design. These works are important because they reflected the Renaissance ideals of harmony, proportion, and celebration of human achievement. The Renaissance also sparked advances in science and technology. Figures like Galileo, Nicholas, I can't pronounce his last name, it's a Copernicus. They challenged old beliefs about the universe, leading to revolutionary discoveries in astronomy. The invention of the printing press by John Gutenberg, I'm going to say his last name is, was another breakthrough, as it allowed books to be printed more quickly and cheaply. That's how they go through, they can spread ideas faster that way as well. Spread knowledge across Europe and ultimately around the world, and help people gain access to new ideas, fueling further growth in education and innovation. In conclusion, The Renaissance really was a transformative period that reshaped European society and societies around the world through their continued contact, and in the age of exploration. Remember, we're making contact with different places. This period was really just known for its interest in art and science, right? The ideas and innovations of this era, they continue to influence modern culture, science, and education to this day. People take inspiration from art that was made back then, that was sculptures made back then. The ideas from different thinkers and inventors, they use those ideas and help influence and promote ideas that are made nowadays, right? Build on it, right? By celebrating human potential and encouraging curiosity, the Renaissance opened the door to a new age of exploration and understanding. The Enlightenment was arguably an age of reason, where people took time to think about ethics and not just how the world works, but how it should be. So we're going to transition now from the Renaissance to the age of Enlightenment, and we're going to make connections between both, okay? Remember, the age of the Renaissance, people want to go through and bring back the ideas like freedom of speech, freedom of ideas. They're trying to bring that back. The Enlightenment, people are like, hey, this society we're in right now is not really how we want it to be. Let's go through and talk about how we can fix it and make it the way it's supposed to be, morally right? The Enlightenment, also known as the Age of Reason, was a period during the 17th and 18th centuries where thinkers began to emphasize reason, science, and individual rights over tradition. Furthermore, back in this time, there were a lot of religious authority. The church was the center of everything. You have to follow its rules. It's almost, if you break the rules of the church, it's almost worse than breaking a law, right? It was serious. You wanted to follow the rules of the church, okay? They realized, hey, maybe this is not quite right. There were some issues going on, indulgences. You could go through and pay to be forgiven in advance for doing something against the church. If you break a rule for the church, you can go through and give the priest $5, right? And he'll say, oh, okay, I'm going to forgive you for next Tuesday, where you're going to break a rule of the church, and you're going to be good. They said, this is just not right? You can't go through and break the rules and already have paid to do it. You're paying for permission to do something wrong and bad. No, they didn't like that. That was an idea that was used, and they wanted to go through and change that idea. They just didn't see this as being right. This time was kind of intellectual growth. It challenged old ways of thinking and laid the groundwork for modern democratic societies and just good societies in general, just society in general. Not even about democratic, or democracy. Just it changed the way people thought about things. It's across the world. Enlightenment thinkers, known as philosophers, believed that human beings could use reason to improve society and solve their problems, right? A key idea of the Enlightenment was a belief in natural rights. Basically, when you're born, you are given rights, no matter what. No one cares who you are, what your name is, who your dad, mom, parent, grandparents, brother, sister, dog, pet, whatever. Where you're from, where you live, where you're going in life, you're given the same rights, the same natural rights, okay? These rights are rights that all people are born with, such as life, liberty, and property. You're allowed to go through and have your life, your liberty is like freedom. You get to go through and choose what you want to do when you want to do it. As long as you don't break any laws and hurt nobody, that kind of stuff. You can go through, if you want to go through and jump up and down for 5 minutes when you're on your free time, and at school, for PE or whatever, recess. If you want to jump up and down for 5 minutes, as long as you're not hurting nobody and you're not going to hurt yourself, you can do it, right? You can jump up and down. If you're obviously, you don't want to go through anything that could hurt somebody else. Don't want to jump and bump into somebody, right? That's not gonna be cool. Yeah, life and liberty. Just you have the right and the ability to be safe when you're playing recess. You don't want somebody to jump and bump into you, right? So you're given the same rights that you won't be bumped into as well. Just you shouldn't go through and bump into somebody else. Makes sense? That kind of example. Cool. Yeah, maybe. Let's keep rolling regardless. Property. You're allowed to go through and have property. You can go through and buy stuff. Sell stuff. If you want a car, you can buy a car. You can sell a car. You want a candy bar, you can buy a candy bar. You can sell a candy bar, right? You're allowed to go through and do things legally. Philosophers like John Locke argued that governments should protect these rights, and that rulers who fail to do so shouldn't be around. They should be overthrown and let somebody else take charge. That will go through and give you these rights, these basic rights, right? This idea greatly influenced political movements, including the American and the French Revolution, as people began demanding more freedom and equality. They're like, hey, we need these rights. They are the right thing to have. Yeah, they're the right thing to have. Yeah, they are the right thing to have. It's the correct thing to have. We should all have this. Science also advanced significantly during this time. Thinkers like Isaac Newton or Sir Isaac Newton, Voltaire, I can't pronounce his name very well. They emphasized the importance of observation, experimentation, and critical thinking. Newton's law of motion and gravity showed how the universe could be understood through scientific principles, inspiring others to honestly explore the natural world. These scientific approaches encourage people to question traditional beliefs and seek evidence-based answers. Like, hey, why does an apple fall from a tree, right? Why does it hit the ground? Is it because we're on a bigger apple? What's the reason behind it? You might think that's what it is, but might have been like an old way of thought that we're just on a bigger apple, so therefore all apples fall towards a bigger apple. But they realized, hey, there's a thing called gravity, right? We know now that gravity's a thing. Back in the day, they didn't know this was a real thing. They thought this is just what apples do. When they fall down, just how it happens. They wanted to get an answer. Why does this apple fall from the tree and it has to go down? Why doesn't it go up? Why doesn't it go left? Why doesn't it go into big, gigantic circles when it falls down? They wanted to find the reasons why something happened. So they were trying to do experiment, and scientific discovery and growth was happening. Right, thinkers like Sir Isaac Newton, they wanted to go through and find answers by doing the scientific method, observing, experimenting, documenting, questioning, all that kind of stuff. They thought that their laws of motion and gravity, they should show how the universe could be understood through scientific principles. This inspired others to explore the natural world. This scientific approach was important because it encouraged people to question traditional beliefs and seek evidence-based answers. Education and literacy expanded during this time, as philosophers argue that knowledge, or that having this kind of learning was essential for progress. Writers such as Mary Wollstonecraft advocated for equal education for women, while Britts, I might not be pronouncing that correctly either, encyclopedia spread Enlightenment ideas to a wider audience. Encyclopedia is like where you go through and you document different things in the natural world that are there, right? It's like a cool dictionary, a cooler version of dictionary. This focus on education helps spread some new ideas about human rights, democracy, and the value of reason. Ultimately, the Enlightenment was a transformative era that reshaped the way people thought about the world and their place in it, right? By emphasizing reason, science, and individual rights, Enlightenment thinkers challenged traditional authority and paved the way for modern society. The principles of liberty, equality, and progress that emerged during this time continue to influence our world today. There are a lot of ways in which we as historians are able to connect the Renaissance and the Enlightenment together. We do this to understand how one led to the other. The Renaissance and Enlightenment were two pivotal parts in human history. These parts mark significant shifts in human thought and culture. Both eras emphasize the power of human potential and the importance of questioning traditional ideas in order to have a more solid explanation of the world. You question things in the past in order to have the correct answer and the way things are actually supposed to be. Because we're not always right. We sometimes make mistakes. While the Renaissance focused on revival of art, science, and just classical knowledge, the Enlightenment expanded on these foundations by applying reason and logic to society, politics, and education. Together, they reshaped the way people viewed themselves and they viewed the world. This would lay the groundwork for the modern era, aka our time, right? A common theme between the Renaissance and the Enlightenment was the focus on humanism. The idea that humans have the capacity to shape their own destiny and improve their lives. During the Renaissance, humanism inspired a renewed interest in classical text and the arts, encouraging creativity and innovation. The Enlightenment built on this idea, applying human reason to political and societal systems, right? This shift led to the revolutionary ideas such as like democracy, freedom of speech, individual rights, and the role of government. As seen in the works of thinkers like John Locke and Voltaire, they wanted to push this progress, human progress, towards equality and ultimately, hopefully, happiness for all by having this. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Both periods also celebrated advancements in science and knowledge. The Renaissance brought about groundbreaking discoveries such as those individuals from Galileo, Leonardo da Vinci, who combined art and science to better understand the natural world. The Enlightenment continued this progress with figures like Isaac Newton, who used reason and observation to explain complex concepts like gravity and motion, which kind of define our world. You got to have gravity in order to have our worlds. It's kind of an important fundamental aspect, right? These scientific achievements not only expanded human knowledge, but also inspired new ways of thinking that challenged traditional authority. Education is important, especially in the time of the Enlightenment, because it played a crucial role in letting people begin to think and write things down, record things, discuss. It's important. During the Renaissance, education focused on the rediscovery of classical knowledge, which helped spark curiosity and creativity. Similarly, the Enlightenment emphasized education as a means to empower individuals and improve society. Thinkers like Mary Wollstonecraft argued for equal education opportunities for all, while projects like Britts Encyclopedia made knowledge more accessible to the public. That way people can go through and have a wider understanding of what the world's like around here. You might be living in your particular town, county, city, state, and you may never see the other part of the world. But having this encyclopedia that has things about the other part of the world you never visit will help you learn about that place, places you may never ever go to, right? This shared emphasis on learning, this importance is a better way to say it, this importance on learning helps spread new ideas that transform culture and society. In conclusion, the Renaissance and the Enlightenment were both essential to the development of human history. If we didn't have these two time periods, we might not be who we are today. It might be entirely different. They shared themselves freely between each other. They're trying to go through and say, hey, we have these ideas, these thoughts, we'll share these thoughts, share who we are in order to grow. But these different themes that were shared amongst themselves, such as humanism, the pursuit of knowledge, and the importance of education, allow people to encourage others and themselves to think critically, right? Therefore, they would do this. They would question, why are these rules, like from authority members, in place? Why do we have to have these in place? And together, these eras encourage people to think critically. These time periods want us to think critically, want us to grow as people. They want us to question authority and explore our own potential. Their influence can still be seen today in the arts and sciences and democratic values that still shape the modern world. So, I hope you learned something. If you ever have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm happy to help. All right, take it easy.